Welcome finally to another episode of Out and About with Trev. This is episode 78. It's a long time back to episode 77. So in that episode I detailed a couple of things. Firstly, that I'd actually got my Subaru Outback on the road. People that have been watching the channel will know that over the last couple of years I've been working on that. Bought this thing cheap. I had to work on the engine, suspension, a whole range of things. It took way longer than I expected, cost way more than I expected. It was an exciting project, massive project, and by the time I finally got to getting the roadworthy done, and even then there was a final hurdle. I took it to a place. We were in full lockdown at that point. It was right at the end of it was the last lockdown. Finally got this thing all ready to go, fixed the smoke coming out the back of it, all sorts of things. Rebuilt the engine for the 5th time, and we could only go 5 kilometres, so I had to work out where I could go in the 5 kilometres and get a roadworthy done. And I found a place called All Types Automotive, and I'd had issues with other guys doing roadworthies. One guy's told me that it's illegal to work on your own car, and they wouldn't give me a roadworthy if I did the work on it. And I just never went back to them. Another crowd, they took it, and I'm not going to name them, but they broke it. So I don't know how hard they drove the car, but they broke the front sway bar links, both of them, and I don't know what they were about. They were also messing me about because I'd go in, they'd give me a list of 3 or 4 things that were wrong. I'd go fix those 3 or 4 things, take it back, and they'd say, "Oh, now there's another 3 or 4 things," and I'd be like, "Why didn't you just tell me there was 8 things? Isn't that how it's meant to be?" But that's a whole other issue. But anyway, I finally got down to All Types Automotive in Reservoir, and was really excited. And Rob says to me, "You got 2 things to fix," and one was one of the bushings I'd put in on the front suspension hadn't gone in quite far enough, and it was rubbing against the rail. I had to drop the lower control arm, pull the bushing out, flip it around, put it back in. That was all fine. And the other thing was that the brake pedal that you put your foot on to make the brakes work, the pad was a bit worn, so I went to Repco, got a new one. It was like $17, and the next morning I went back, and it was nice to see the Suby up on the hoist. Got to have a good look underneath and see all the things I'd put in. So nice new suspension, new exhaust. I could see new bolts everywhere, and then finally Rob handed me roadworthy, and it was a little bit of an emotional time. It was mission accomplished. I mean, that was the goal. I mean, it was buy a cheap car, work on it, get it to the point where I could drive the thing, and then there was swings and roundabouts, and I got my roadworthy, and I booked into Vic Roads, and when you book into Vic Roads, it's interesting because I know how it works in your neck of the woods, but when you go onto the Vic Roads site and you try to make a booking, and it costs you for the booking, they don't give you an option of where to go. They just work out where you are because they know where all the computers are now, and they basically, what they do is they send you to the closest Vic Roads. So I got sent to Bundoora Vic Roads, just up the road. I was booked in for like first thing 8:30 in the morning. I thought, cool. I got up there, parked, sat around till 8:30. There's a few other people there, and I was really excited. I mean, this is what I'd worked for 18 months on. This is, I'd spent 10 grand on this thing. I just wanted to get the plates and go driving. And we walked up to the front door, and there's signs all over the front of it. And what had happened is that office was closed because of a COVID outbreak, and I was shattered. My unregistered vehicle permit that I was driving around on, and that allows you to drive to like Vic Roads to get your car registered and roadworthies and things like that. It was going to run out in only a few days, and they're like $80 each, $84 each, and that's for a month. I didn't want to have to go for another one of them. So I sat there in the car park thinking, what am I going to do? I tried ringing them, but their phone system was in meltdown. And I ended up driving all the way into Carlton and explained the circumstance and said, look, I've worked on this thing for 18 months. What can you do for me? and they said just wait wait a while and maybe we can help you. And about 20 minutes later, the guy came out and we had a look at the car, and he handed me the plates, and I sat there in the car park and put the plates on, and it was that was also an emotional time, and it was and I don't mind saying that. I mean, I've worked on I blood, sweat, and tears on this thing. This thing knocked me out at one point. I'd had the car fall off the jacks. I'd had all sorts of issues going on. Just getting to some of the places to get nuts and bolts. I had to get a mate give me a lift and travel all the way down the eastern suburbs on public transport so I could pick up seatbelts and things like that. It was a lot of work. So when I was at Vic Roads, it was exciting. And since then, because since then, I'd had enough of working on the car. I just wanted to drive the bloody thing, and I have. I've done about 7,000 Ks since I got it on the road, and that was at the end of September, so it's been out there. Apart from a few little problems, it's running fine. I've recently done a full oil and coolant change and swapped out the stuff from the initial rebuild, so that's something in the manual that says to do that. Recently done that. The oil that came out looked fine. The coolant looked fine. It was green. So, but I had a weird problem. This was a strange one. When I started driving, and it was starting to get warmer because it was the end of last year. I had water in the back of the car on the floor, and at first I thought I'd left a window open when it rained, and I thought, well, that could have happened. So I dried it all out. Drove around for a week and the water came back, and I thought maybe I've got a big leak, and it wasn't until I actually pulled out the passenger seat and lifted the carpet that I realised there was also water in the front, and that was a concern because under the passenger seat there's a subwoofer system and it probably doesn't need water to be around it. So and it turned out that what was happening was the condensation hose that comes out of the air conditioner was blocked. So all that condensation that the air conditioner produces was actually running into the cab, and that was where my moisture was coming from. I cleared the hose, and two things happened. The air conditioner ran better and cooler, and also the cabin stayed dry. So that was awesome. The other smallish issue was that the almost initially when I started driving, it seemed like the fuel gauge was telling lies, and it was. You'd run it, it would go to half and then just drop to like near empty. The fuel light would come on, and then I'd go to the petrol station and only be able to get 40 litres into it. So that told me that there was something weird going on there. I ended up pulling out you have to pull out the fuel pump and change over the fuel level sensor on the side of that. That's all in the fuel tank, so that's exciting. So I changed that out, and now that's a bit more accurate, which is handy. I must say I'm still a little bit disappointed in the fuel economy. I know I'm getting about as good as I can get. I think also because I'm just driving around Melbourne. I'm about to do a big long trip to Swan Hill, and I'm going to put 20 litre jerry can in the back of the car, and I'm actually going to find out how far I can go on a tank. So that's going to be coming up in a future episode. I think that might make me feel a bit better about my car, because I'm pretty confident I'm going to get about 580 k's out of the tank, which would be all right, and that we'll see how that goes. Like I've mentioned before, I'm standing in front of this, and I've got an upcoming snow trip planned. And that's only in a couple of weeks. It's a little bit crazy. All my previous cars, I've got photos of them in the snow, and I want to go get some photos of my Suby in the snow. That's about how simple that is. And it was much easier when I lived in Bright, nice close to the mountains. You could just zip up and do it. But this has taken a little bit more planning. I'm going to be away for a week and get some nice shots in some cool locations. So that's going to be great. But what I thought, now that I can put videos together, I thought, why not take us back to the end of last year, I'd only had the car on the road for a couple of months. There were probably things I should have tightened and checked before I went. But I headed off. We just had massive storms go through, and the roads were very wet. And this is from the end of November last year. And I headed out up through Tangel Bren, up through the mountains, across to Jamison, ended up in Mansfield and up in a couple of spots. And part of the reason for this trip was A, to go for a drive in my car, but really what I wanted to do was make sure that this thing could get me to where I need to drop off some of the food drops if I'm ever going to hike the Australian Alps walking track. And that's something I've also featured on the channel. People have asked me why I bought a Subaru Outback. I didn't need an all-wheel drive vehicle to drive around Melbourne and take me to places to do filming or work or whatever. But I needed something that had a little bit of, all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive capability to get me to some of the places where I've got to drop these food drops. So from the first day that I went and looked at this thing, it wasn't just whether or not it would cart all my film gear. Would it get me down to the shops to get some shopping? Would it get me down the road to go to work or whatever? Really, it was about, is this the type of vehicle that will get me up into the mountains and be able to get me to the spots where I need to drop these food drops off? And this trip was about checking 3 of these spots. I'm confident with the rest, but these 3 I'd never been there, so it was about, let's go check, see what the Suby can do. And like I say, it was pretty damn wet. Check this out. Well, here I am out bush. I'm about 10, 12, something like that kilometres south of Tangel Bren. Well, here I am at a place called McAdams Gap, just over 1158 metres above sea level. Anyway, Suby's still running nice. So this is Fiddler Green. This is one of the spots that I'll be coming through when I hopefully do the Australian Alps walking track. And I've got to put a food water drop somewhere around here. I have to hide it. But anyway, this is why I'm out here. I'm just checking to make sure that my Suby can get to the locations. So now I've just got to get to the other one, to another one. Anyway, as you can see, it's a bit wet, cold. Alright, so I'm all set to go. I'm about to leave Rump Saddle. It's a little bit tricky today. I've got about 100 k's left in the tank, but the sat nav says it's 104 kilometres to the next petrol station. Anyway, we'll see how it goes. Just put slowly back. Well, here I am at the low saddle. This is one of the points that I'm planning to put some water when I do the Australian Alps walking track. Alright, so I've just left the low saddle, and I've decided to play it safe because I forgot to check the weather when I was down in Mansfield or Jameson. I'm not sure if it's going to rain later, and as you can see, this track's a bit actually at the moment this is not too bad, but a bit later it gets worse. So I've decided to play it safe, and I've done the check I wanted to do with the low saddle, so that was good. But now I'm just heading back, and I'll find somewhere a bit lower in the valley, a bit further down. Just like I say, it's just sometimes you've just got to make a safe decision. I mean, I could have camped up there, not a problem, but I just worry, if I wake up tomorrow morning and it's pouring rain, or even just a little bit of rain, this track, and especially a bit further down where it gets a little tricky, I'm not sure how I'd get through that in my Suby if it was raining. So, and I'll show you that a bit later on. Whoops. Well, we'll do that again. Well, that's what it's all about. That trip was awesome. It was the first road trip in my own car I'd done since actually the end of 2012. And that was when I was out for Christmas in my van. And 6 months later, I was actually put into the house in Reservoir, so that's really nice, and I'm still there. And it was really nice to do that trip in November, and you know, it was just nice to be back on the roads, and that's why I worked on this thing. And you know, it's really good to be able to go to places I've never been, and in fact I've never been here, and this is a nice place. I'll certainly be back here again. Since then, like I said, I've done about 7,000 kilometres on the road, and actually I did a drive down to Phillip Island. It was nice to do, it was a really nice trip. Did about 364 kilometres there and back, which was nice. And in about a week and a half, I'm actually going to be up at Mount Hotham. So this thing will be out in the snow. I've got some snow chains. A lot of people think that because you've got all-wheel drive vehicle, you have to have snow chains on the back wheels and the front. But Subaru say that for this one, you only have to have them in the front. So they're the guys that, you know, who built the vehicle. So I'm listening to what they have to say. And I've got one set of snow chains. They're going to be on the front, and we'll just see how it goes. And all my previous vehicles, as I mentioned, all of them have been in the snow before, so I want to get some nice photos of this one up there as well. After that, I've got a trip, as I mentioned before, I've got a trip up to Swan Hill, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill the fuel tank up, head out, and then we'll just see exactly how many kilometres I can get in a full tank. I'll have a 20 litre jerry can with fuel, so when I run out of fuel in the tank, I'll be able to put that in, and that'll let me get to you know, a place where I can get more fuel, of course. But it's just that because of the issues with the fuel sensor and things like that, it looks like you know, even when the fuel light comes on, which is meant to come on when there's about 10 litres left, it seems like there's actually about 18 or 19 litres left. So it's coming on a little bit early, but we'll just see how that goes. And anyway, that's about really all I want to show. Say in this episode, I just wanted to say that, you know, now that I can edit my videos again, I'll be able to put more episodes up. I'll certainly put an episode up of my snow trip, show people how the trip up to Swan Hill goes. I've got a couple of bushwalks planned for later in the year, so that's going to be interesting. I actually haven't done a bushwalk since the end of 2019, so that's a couple of years ago. I mean, the last couple of years have just been crazy. I'm looking forward to getting out there again. I just got a new sleeping bag that's like 1.4 kgs lower weight than the one I've been using, so that's going to be awesome. I've got a new GPS. I'll talk about that in a future episode. And I've also decided I'm going to roll the dice. You know, like everyone, I'm getting older. I've been dreaming about doing the AAWT, or the Australian Alps walking track. I've got all the maps. I've been planning this for years, and I thought, well, you know, just when can I really look at doing it? You know, have I left it too long? And I decided, well, now that I've got this thing, I can get more jobs, I can earn more money, which is really good. So I'm decided, let's roll the dice, and in 2024 I'm gonna try and have a go at it. That gives me a bit of time. I've got to get a lot fitter. I've also got a few little things I've got to get. I've got most of what I need in terms of equipment. I'm going to need to have quite a few dollars. Just to give you an idea, the trip to drop off the fuel drops sorry, the food drops, just to drop them off. And by the time you go up and around through the mountains, nearly to Canberra, and then back down, that's about 2,100 kilometres. So that's a serious trip on its own. Then I've got to go do the hike, and then after that I've got to go back and pick all my food drops off again. So I'm going to need quite a bit of money for fuel for that. That's going to be a couple of interesting trips on their own. It's also a bit tricky at the moment. I was actually just starting to do some walks, starting to get a little bit fitter. I was feeling better. I've actually damaged my knee, so I've had to take it easy for the last week and a half. And I really can't do much until, after I get back from my snow trip. And the docs don't think I've completely screwed it up, but it is tricky. Anyway, guys, that's about all I want to say. And thanks for watching. And we'll see you in the next one. Cheers.